Also known as the First World War or the Great War, was a global conflict fought from 1914 to 1918. It involved most of the world's great powers, fought from 1914 to 1918. The major powers were divided into two main alliances, the Allied powers and the Central powers. The Allied powers included France, Britain, Russia, Italy, and later the United States. The Central powers were Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. It was a pivotal event that reshaped the 20th century, introducing modern warfare with trenches and new technologies. World War I was rooted in several key factors that created tension across Europe in the years leading up to 1914. First, militarism involved an intense arms race and military buildup. European powers competed to build larger armies and navies, increasing defense spending dramatically. Second, a complex web of alliances bound nations together. Treaties obligated countries to defend each other, turning local conflicts into continent-wide wars. Third, imperialism drove competition for colonies and resources. European powers scrambled to control territories in Africa and Asia, creating rivalries. Fourth, nationalism fostered intense patriotism and desires for self-determination. Ethnic groups sought independence, straining empires. Together, militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism created a highly volatile environment in Europe where a single spark could ignite widespread conflict. The immediate trigger for World War I was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was visiting Sarajevo in Bosnia. A group of Bosnian Serb nationalists, including Gavrilo Princip, planned his assassination as part of the Black Hand Secret Society. Franz Ferdinand was accompanied by his wife, Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg. They had married morganatically, which angered many in the imperial court. Upon arriving in Sarajevo, their motorcade was greeted by crowds. However, assassins were positioned along the route, armed with bombs and pistols. A first attempt with a bomb failed, injuring others in the motorcade. Later, as they diverted from the original route, Gavrilo Princip encountered them by chance and shot both Franz Ferdinand and Sophie. Austria-Hungary, outraged by the assassination, issued an ultimatum to Serbia and declared war on July 28, 1914. Due to rigid alliance systems, this sparked a chain reaction. Russia mobilized to defend Serbia, prompting Germany to declare war on Russia and France. Britain entered when Germany invaded Belgium. Within weeks, the major powers of Europe were drawn into what became World War I, the deadliest conflict the world had ever seen. The major Allied powers included France, Great Britain, Russia until 1917, Italy from 1915, and the United States from 1917. These nations united to oppose the expansionist ambitions of the Central Powers. France was a key European power that was defending its territory against German invasion, particularly along the Western Front. Great Britain, with its powerful navy and colonial empire, played a crucial role in blockades and global operations. Russia, a vast Eastern empire, fought on multiple fronts but withdrew from the war in 1917 due to internal revolution. Italy joined the Allies in 1915, motivated by promises of territorial gains from Austria-Hungary. The United States entered the war in 1917, bringing fresh troops and economic resources that helped tip the balance. These nations formed a coalition that ultimately prevailed, reshaping the world order after the war. The Central Powers were the primary alliance that opposed the Allied forces during World War I. Composed of Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria, these nations formed a coalition to expand their territories and influence, especially in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Germany, the most powerful member of the Central Powers, initiated the alliance and drove much of its military strategy. Under Kaiser Wilhelm II, Germany aimed to expand its empire and influence across Europe, particularly challenging British and French dominance. Austria-Hungary, ruled by Emperor Franz Joseph, was a vast empire comprising many nationalities. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand by a Serbian nationalist triggered Austria-Hungary's declaration of war against Serbia, pulling in the Central Powers and starting the conflict. The Ottoman Empire, under Sultan Mehmed V, joined the Central Powers in 1914. It sought to protect its remaining territories and expand influence in the Middle East, bringing the war to new fronts in Asia and Africa. Bulgaria, ruled by Tsar Ferdinand I, entered the war in 1915 on the side of the Central Powers. It aimed to reclaim territories lost in previous Balkan wars and expand its borders in the region. Together, Germany, Austro-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria formed the Central Powers Alliance. Their shared goals of expanding influence and territories shaped the course of World War I, particularly in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. The Western Front, stretching across France and Belgium, became the primary battleground of World War I, where trench warfare dominated the conflict. Opposing armies dug miles of trenches, creating complex networks that included frontline trenches, support trenches, and communication trenches. This led to a bloody stalemate where neither side could advance significantly. Life in the trenches was extremely harsh. Soldiers faced constant exposure to mud, water, disease, and the ever-present threat of enemy artillery and sniper fire. Tangled barbed wire stretched between trenches, creating deadly barriers that made advances extremely difficult and dangerous. Diseases like trench foot resulted from standing in wet, muddy trenches for days, leading to severe foot infections and gangrene. Artillery bombardment turned the once fertile land into a desolate moonscape, with craters, ruined structures, and constant danger from unexploded shells. Machine guns were one of the most devastating new technologies of World War I. These rapid-firing weapons could shoot hundreds of bullets per minute, turning open fields into deadly killing zones. Unlike earlier single-shot rifles, machine guns allowed defenders to mow down charging infantry from fixed positions, contributing significantly to the stalemate of trench warfare. Tanks were invented during World War I to break through the deadlock of trench warfare. These armored vehicles could cross barbed wire, crush trenches, and provide mobile firepower. First used by the British at the Somme in 1916, tanks evolved throughout the war, though early versions were unreliable and slow. Their introduction marked the beginning of mechanized warfare. Airplanes transformed warfare in World War I, evolving from reconnaissance tools to deadly combat machines. Early planes were used for scouting enemy positions, but soon pilots began carrying weapons, leading to aerial dogfights. By war's end, specialized fighter planes and bombers were common, introducing three-dimensional warfare and aerial bombing tactics. Chemical weapons were among the most feared innovations of World War I. Chlorine gas, first used by Germany at Ypres in 1915, caused choking and blindness. Mustard gas, introduced later, burned skin and lungs, lingering on the battlefield for days. These weapons terrorized soldiers and civilians, leading to widespread condemnation and the Geneva Protocol banning their use in future wars. Improved artillery was the biggest killer in World War I, accounting for most casualties. Heavy guns could fire shells over long distances with devastating accuracy. Barrages could last for days, pulverizing trenches and creating no man's land. These weapons turned the war into a battle of attrition, where the side with more ammunition often prevailed. The Eastern Front, primarily between Germany and Austria-Hungary against Russia, was more mobile than the Western Front, but equally brutal. It involved vast distances and large-scale offensives and retreats. A key example was the Gorlice-Tarnow breakthrough in 1915, where Central Powers pushed back Russian forces over vast distances. Troops moved across huge territories, facing harsh weather and terrain that amplified the war's brutality. While less static than the West, the Eastern Front still saw trench warfare and immense casualties. The United States initially remained neutral in World War I, despite the war beginning in 1914. American President Woodrow Wilson advocated for isolationism, believing the conflict was a European matter. However, Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare in January 1917, sinking American ships and causing civilian casualties. This violated international law and angered the American public. The interception of the Zimmermann telegram in 1917 further escalated tensions. This secret German message proposed an alliance with Mexico against the United States, offering to help Mexico reconquer lost territories in the Southwest. These events led the United States to declare war on Germany in April 1917, marking a turning point in the conflict. The arrival of American troops and vast resources provided a significant boost to the Allied powers. Over 2 million American soldiers eventually fought in Europe, helping to break the stalemate on the Western Front. American industrial might supplied weapons, food, and supplies, while fresh troops helped push back German forces. This support was crucial in achieving Allied victory in 1918. The Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919, formally ended World War I and reshaped the global order. This pivotal agreement between the Allied powers and Germany imposed severe penalties that would have lasting consequences. The treaty was negotiated at the Palace of Versailles near Paris, where leaders from Britain, France, Italy, and the United States met to dictate terms to Germany. The signing ceremony took place in the opulent Hall of Mirrors, a symbol of French grandeur. One of the harshest aspects was territorial losses. Germany was forced to cede significant territories, including Alsace-Lorraine to France, parts of Prussia to Poland, and colonies in Africa and Asia to the Allies. The Saarland was placed under League of Nations control for 15 years. Germany faced military restrictions known as disarmament. The army was limited to 100,000 volunteers, tanks and submarines were banned, and the navy was reduced to a small coastal force. The Rhineland was demilitarized and occupied by Allied troops for 15 years. The treaty demanded massive reparations from Germany to compensate for war damages. The amount was set at 132 billion gold marks, equivalent to about $400 billion today. These payments crippled the German economy and fueled resentment. The War Guilt Clause, or Article 231, forced Germany to accept full responsibility for starting the war. This provision humiliated the German people and provided legal justification for the reparations and territorial demands. The Treaty of Versailles is widely criticized as overly punitive. German resentment over the harsh terms contributed to economic hardship, political instability, and the rise of Adolf Hitler. Many historians argue it planted the seeds for World War II just 2 decades later. The League of Nations was created in 1920 as part of the Treaty of Versailles, with the goal of maintaining world peace and fostering international cooperation. The League's structure was based in Geneva, Switzerland, and it included most of the world's countries as founding members. However, the United States never joined, weakening its influence significantly. The League had significant weaknesses. It lacked its own military force and could only impose economic sanctions or moral pressure. Decisions often required unanimous agreement, and member states could simply ignore League resolutions. The League proved ineffective in practice. It failed to prevent Japan's invasion of Manchuria in 1931, Italy's aggression against Ethiopia in 1935, and Germany's remilitarization and expansion in the 1930s, which ultimately contributed to the outbreak of World War II. Unable to prevent the Second World War, the League was disbanded in 1946 and replaced by the United Nations, which addressed many of its structural weaknesses. World War I exacted a tremendous human toll, with casualties on an unprecedented scale that reshaped societies and left lasting scars on the global population. The war resulted in an estimated 16 to 20 million deaths, encompassing both military personnel killed in combat and civilians who perished from disease, famine, and bombing. Of these, military deaths alone numbered approximately 10 million soldiers from all sides, lost in battles across multiple fronts. In addition to the deaths, approximately 21 million people were wounded, many suffering lifelong injuries from artillery, gas attacks, and trench conditions. This image shows the harsh reality of medical treatment during the war, where soldiers endured severe injuries and makeshift care in battlefield conditions. For context, the United States alone suffered significant losses, as shown in this bar graph detailing deaths among the Army, Navy, and Marines. The scale of these casualties was unprecedented in modern warfare, leaving battlefields like this one utterly devastated and changing the course of history. The human cost of World War I, with millions dead and wounded, serves as a sobering lesson about the true price of conflict. World War I had a devastating economic impact on Europe, leading to widespread debt, severe inflation, and long-term economic instability that shaped the interwar period. The total cost of the war is estimated to be equivalent to $400 trillion in today's currency, far exceeding what any nation could afford. Many European economies suffered significant declines in GDP during the war. Germany, Austria, Russia, and France all experienced drops in real GDP, while the United States and United Kingdom saw increases due to wartime production. The war left many countries with unsustainable debt, leading to rampant inflation in the 1920s. Germany experienced hyperinflation, where $1 became worth 4 trillion German marks by 1923, while other nations had more stable rates. The human cost of over 16 million deaths and 21 million wounded disrupted labor markets, increased government spending on veterans, and strained family economies, exacerbating the financial crisis in war-torn nations. The economic devastation of World War I created conditions for political extremism and set the stage for future conflicts, demonstrating how war's financial toll extends far beyond the battlefield. World War I brought profound social transformations that reshaped societies worldwide. As millions of men left for the front lines, women stepped into essential roles in factories, farms, and other workplaces. The contributions of women during the war fueled the suffrage movement. In recognition of their wartime service, many countries granted women the right to vote. Britain extended voting rights to women over 30 in 1918, while the United States followed with the 19th Amendment in 1920. World War I also accelerated the decline of traditional social hierarchies. The immense casualties affected all classes, challenging the authority of aristocrats and elites who had dominated pre-war society. This contributed to more democratic and merit-based social structures in the post-war era. World War I led to the collapse of several major empires, fundamentally reshaping the political map of Europe and the Middle East. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, a multi-ethnic state in Central Europe, disintegrated under the pressures of nationalism and military defeat. From its territories emerged new independent nations, including Austria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia, as shown in these before and after maps of Europe. The Ottoman Empire, which controlled much of the Middle East and parts of Europe, also fell apart. Its defeat in the war resulted in the creation of modern Turkey and led to League of Nations mandates over regions that became Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and Iraq. The Russian Empire faced revolution during the war, leading to the Bolshevik takeover and the formation of the Soviet Union. Several territories gained independence, including Finland, Poland, and the Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Amid World War I, the Ottoman Empire carried out systematic atrocities against its Armenian population, known today as the Armenian Genocide. This tragic event occurred between 1915 and 1923, resulting in the deaths of up to 1.5 million Armenians through massacres, forced marches, and deportations. The genocide unfolded as part of the broader war effort, with Ottoman authorities accusing Armenians of disloyalty. Systematic deportations forced Armenians from their homes into the Syrian desert, where many perished from starvation, disease, and violence. The human cost was immense, affecting families and communities across the Ottoman Empire. This photograph captures the somber reality faced by many Armenian families during this period. Today, the Armenian genocide is recognized as such by over 30 countries worldwide, though Turkey continues to dispute this characterization. Memorials around the world honor the victims and serve as reminders of the importance of preventing such atrocities. The Armenian genocide remains a sensitive topic, with ongoing efforts toward reconciliation and recognition. It stands as a stark example of the human rights violations that can occur during times of war and conflict. The Battle of the Somme, fought in 1916 on the Western Front, stands as a prime example of the futility and devastation of World War I trench warfare. This 4-month battle resulted in over 1 million casualties, highlighting the deadly combination of new technologies and attrition strategies. The battle's human cost was staggering. Germany suffered the highest casualties at 465,000, while British forces lost over 350,000 men. On the first day alone, July 1st, 1916, the British suffered 57,470 casualties in a single day, the bloodiest in their military history. The Somme exemplified trench warfare, where opposing armies dug elaborate systems of trenches. These fortifications, separated by no man's land, made direct assaults extremely costly and often futile. Machine guns and barbed wire defended the trenches effectively. The battlefield became a desolate wasteland. Continuous artillery bombardment created massive craters and destroyed the landscape. Barbed wire entanglements and muddy conditions trapped soldiers, while machine guns mowed down those attempting to advance across no man's land. The battle introduced revolutionary new technologies. British Mark tanks made their combat debut at the Somme, though mechanical failures limited their impact. Artillery barrages and machine guns further demonstrated how industrialization had transformed warfare into a deadly, mechanized affair. Despite massive casualties, the Allies gained only about 6 miles of territory. The Somme became a symbol of the futility of World War I warfare, where attrition tactics and entrenched defenses made victory elusive and extraordinarily costly in human lives. The Gallipoli Campaign of 1915 was a major Allied attempt to capture the Dardanelles Strait and the Ottoman capital, Constantinople. The goal was to open a supply route to Russia and force the Ottoman Empire out of the war. On April 25, 1915, Allied forces, including Australian and New Zealand troops known as Anzacs, launched amphibious landings on the Gallipoli Peninsula. The Anzacs landed at Anzac Cove, facing immediate resistance from Turkish defenders. Despite initial bravery, the campaign became a costly failure due to poor planning, underestimated Turkish defenses under Mustafa Kemal, and inhospitable terrain. The Allies suffered over 130,000 casualties, while Turkish forces lost around 120,000. The Gallipoli campaign remains a symbol of sacrifice, particularly for Australia and New Zealand, where it's commemorated annually on Anzac Day as a testament to the courage of the Anzac troops. World War I left a lasting environmental legacy that continues to affect landscapes over a century later. The war's industrialized nature caused widespread destruction and contamination that persists in many areas. One of the most enduring problems is soil contamination from unexploded ordnance. Millions of shells contain toxic chemicals and heavy metals that leach into the ground. In areas like the Western Front, this contamination affects agriculture and wildlife, with cleanup efforts ongoing through EU-funded projects using robotics. The massive artillery bombardments during battles like the Somme and Verdun created enormous craters and destroyed natural landscapes. These moonscapes altered drainage patterns and soil composition, leading to erosion and loss of biodiversity. Climate change has accelerated this degradation, with rising sea levels threatening preserved trenches. The extensive trench systems across the Western Front physically altered the terrain and disrupted natural habitats. These man-made features created barriers to wildlife movement and changed local hydrology. Modern environmental studies show how these trenches continue to influence soil moisture and plant growth patterns. Today, organizations like UNESCO work with modern technology, including drones and satellite imagery, to monitor environmental damage from World War I. Remediation projects focus on removing unexploded ordnance and restoring natural habitats, though complete recovery may take generations due to the scale of contamination. The lessons of World War I continue to influence modern geopolitics, particularly in ongoing conflicts like the Russia-Ukraine war. Historians frequently draw parallels between WWI's alliance systems and the rigid entanglements seen today. During World War I, rigid alliance systems caused a local conflict in the Balkans to escalate into a global war within weeks. Similar patterns emerge in modern alliances, where commitments can draw nations into conflicts far from their borders. The trench warfare of World War I created deadly stalemates along the Western Front, where soldiers faced mud, barbed wire, and artillery. In the Russia-Ukraine war, similar defensive fortifications and attrition tactics highlight how WWI's lessons in positional warfare remain relevant. World War I introduced revolutionary technologies like tanks, chemical weapons, and aircraft that transformed warfare. These innovations continue to shape military strategies, reminding us that technological advancements can both prolong conflicts and demand new diplomatic solutions. Ultimately, World War I's legacy serves as a cautionary tale for modern geopolitics, urging leaders to avoid the mistakes of rigid alliances and unchecked escalation that led to unprecedented destruction. Efforts are underway to digitally preserve World War I artifacts and historical sites, ensuring their stories remain accessible for future generations. Modern technologies like virtual reality and artificial intelligence are being used to create immersive experiences that bring history to life. Virtual reality headsets transport users to historical battlefields, allowing them to walk through trenches and witness the conditions soldiers faced. Digital preservation helps combat historical revisionism by providing verified records that cannot be easily altered or disputed. Augmented reality overlays digital information onto physical spaces, allowing visitors to see historical reconstructions superimposed on actual locations. The Imperial War Museum in London has expanded its digital archives using AI to analyze over 1 million World War I artifacts, including letters, photographs, and documents. The museum's physical exhibits complement digital experiences, featuring preserved aircraft, artillery, and other WWI artifacts that tell the story of the conflict. Machine learning is revolutionizing our understanding of World War I through the analysis of personal diaries and propaganda materials. By examining thousands of handwritten entries, AI can identify patterns in soldier morale that were previously hidden. For instance, AI analysis shows how morale fluctuated based on events like receiving mail or experiencing heavy casualties. Posters like this one encouraged maintaining soldier spirits through community support. Beyond diaries, artificial intelligence examines propaganda to detect disinformation patterns that shaped public opinion during the war. These AI insights into WWI propaganda reveal techniques strikingly similar to modern social media manipulation, where false narratives and emotional appeals influence behavior. World War I continues to be commemorated worldwide through annual events that honor the fallen and emphasize themes of peace and reconciliation. These ceremonies bring together nations that were once enemies, fostering understanding and preventing the repetition of such devastating conflicts. The study of World War I has been integrated into educational curricula across the globe. Schools and universities teach about its causes, battles, and consequences, ensuring that younger generations understand the war's profound impact on history and society. Modern educational tools powered by artificial intelligence are enhancing learning experiences. These AI systems provide personalized lessons, data-driven insights, and immediate feedback, helping students grasp complex historical concepts more effectively and draw meaningful lessons for preventing future wars. Through commemoration and education, World War I's enduring legacies continue to shape our understanding of global conflict. By learning from this pivotal event, humanity strives for lasting peace and reconciliation in the modern world.